So this week I thought I'd really kind of let the structure be open. We can crack open the business plan, the original deck and the assignment. We can go into any area. I thought what we'd do is the first half we'll just talk about the business plan, and then the second half we'll talk about the final with whatever time's left. And my thought would be to just let you guys bring up questions or places you're stuck versus going into some sort of formal review first. And then if we run out of material there, we can go back and take a look, or we can just move into the final. Does that sound all right for you guys?
Sure.
So anybody feel like starting? I know I got one email from Edwin.
I can ask a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I wanted to have like a fake little income statement with some projected revenue and things like that. And I was using the financial statement that my boss put together before our brewery opened as an example. And of course, it's massive. I know you had said when we had talked before that we didn't necessarily need to have like numbers that were accurate, or we just need to have enough to show that we understand the structure of a business plan without really getting into the nitty gritty. But of course, this example that I've been trying to reference has a lot of nitty gritty in it. And so
Yeah.
So I didn't know if it was okay just to kind of have a couple of sheets that maybe don't necessarily break down where all these numbers come from, but just to have an understanding that like these are the things that we would need to think about.
Yeah, I think that best case scenario is you would look at that structure that you're borrowing, and then you would choose the elements of it that make sense and remove the ones that don't.
Yeah, and there's a few things.
What's that?
I said, yeah, there's a few things that I've already taken out that don't make sense for our project. And again, I want to change some things. I don't really want to like copy paste. I just wanted to know, like, I wanted to make sure I had enough talking points that this income statement looks legitimate.
Yeah.
Without.
But I think what I'm saying too is that if you think about it in a revenue forecast or pro forma, whatever you're choosing to put in there, and again, we're in this element of we're not teaching finance, but we're illustrating that you're going to have to deal with finance at some point. And so understanding the broad strokes would mean, think about tying it back to the purpose of the business plan. So who's it for? What are you pitching? What are you trying to illustrate? And then illustrate that, and remember that the basics of a financial or P&L statement is, how much do we need to start? How much are we going to bring in? How much are we going to spend? What's going to be left? Like, as stupid simple as that sounds, that's sort of how to test your framework of if you have two things in your what we're going to spend instead of 50 that the full business that the model you were looking at has, it's still that section, right? Like taking out the detail is just taking out the middle, the number of lines. It's not, you're not going to be able to remove either income or expenses as a category. And so then it's just a level of detail is what if I'm grasping your question, we're not worried about whether you covered all the things in the middle, but we want to see the blocks in the right places.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I think I had one more question. So when you were saying, well, who is this for? So is this business plan presentation kind of like our pitch deck a little bit, where we would include more or less things depending on what this is for and who we're presenting it to? I mean, should we say that we're catering our business plan to be for a potential investor, or
so I was just pulling this slide up. Let's review
bringing in additional partners, that sort of thing.
So let me pull this up here. So create and prepare a plan for the business that includes what would be expected in a traditional business plan. You can choose the purpose of this plan in terms of who the audience is receiving the plan and what they are working towards as next steps. For instance, is it to gather partners, secure financing, align, etc.? So you're going to present it as a PDF, but just as we saw with the pitch decks, you need to include either in the upload of the assignment or in page 1 of the assignment, you need to tell me, the reader, and or anybody else, like who you're describing as the reader, so that then the plan is sort of assessed against its purpose. And the level of detail on financials, or the type of financials, or the sequence of when they came into the plan, to me would really depend on who I was pitching and why. That makes sense?
Yeah, that's helpful. I think that does help me narrow it down. I definitely forgot that element of the project until just now. So thank you.
Yep. And I want to go back to your first question, which is the numbers should be relative, meaning I want them to be correct in terms of their relationship to one another. So, like 10 minus 4 equals 6 should hang together. But whether those numbers are appropriate for the size of, like whether they vet all the way through, like I'm not taking them through a financial analysis, but I want the test model to kind of look like it would work if those things were all true. But we have a willing suspension of disbelief to a certain degree. That makes sense? Anybody else?
Frank. I got a question about, I couldn't get onto the Zoom meeting. I just got a message from Edwin. Maybe he's on now, but I couldn't find any links or anything to get onto the meeting. So I'm here now because I used the old link.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry about that. I've been using the recurring link, and with some other meetings I've gotten away from posting. I forgot that I've been posting that every week. Do we need to send something to Edwin? Is he our last holdout? We got Paul here.
I can't. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, trying to get on with my headphones.
Yeah, I just sent a message to Edwin to try the link from last week.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Thanks for doing that. Sorry about that. So maybe I'll hang out for Edwin for a minute, and I'll just review what we're going to do today, so you guys know. Hopefully he logs in here a second. Well, I can share with you anyways. We'll just repeat it for him. But the first half, we're going to field questions about the business plan. And the second half, we're going to field questions about the final. And doesn't have to be real tight, meaning if the questions and review for the business plan spill into the second half, that's fine. You guys will just have to speak up on what we want to do with this. I'm going to wait to share the screen. We were just covering the premise of the assignment as a review to make sure we kind of get the things right. Here he is. So I'll share that screen again once we give Edwin the heads up. Welcome. Apologies for not getting that link posted. It's a recurring link, so I'm glad you guys figured it out. So what we're doing here is we're going to spend this first half fielding questions, which is from you guys on anything you need to know, or if you want to review a part of your business plan, ask a question, whatever. And then when we get to the second half, we'll talk about final, and that doesn't have to be like what is on the test or how it can be, can you clarify this thing or the other thing that you feel like you may need some review on, just from meaning I want it to be as practical as it is about the actual test. So this is a good opportunity that if there's anything you want spend some time on, we can circle back and do it. So I'll go back to this slide, which is just a review of the assignment. So you're to create and prepare a plan for the business that includes what would be expected in a traditional business plan. The team may choose the purpose of the plan in terms of who the audience is and what they're working towards as next steps. For instance, is it to gather partners, secure financing, or align future partners? Plan will be presented as an uploaded PDF, and then you'll present it verbally as a team in the class, and that'll be next week. So the format and what's included, how it's sequenced, I want to leave some room there because you can shape that based on what the purpose of that plan is. But what we were just reviewing is you need to state that purpose. I would put it either on page 1, and yeah, that's a good idea. Let's just put it right up front inside the file rather than relying on being on the message when you post it. So I think something that I took away from the pitch decks, and this is usually just a comment. I wasn't really taking off for it, but it was a consistent comment that the pitch decks often ended, and I feel like maybe I didn't illustrate that I think it's a really good idea to have something that's engaging a response at the end. So people would call it a call to action. It may not be a call to action. It could be, what's next is also kind of a softer call to action. Like, now that you've heard this, we hope for fill in the blank. That if you're pitching to city council, at some point you're going to ask them for something. You're not there just to say hi. There's some reason you're there. And so I think that pitch decks illustrated a little bit of a blind spot there. Business plans have the same thing. So I want you to focus on the final ask is, and it doesn't have to be last, but it's a common place for it. But it's sort of serving the purpose that, hey, we're hoping to get approved. We're hoping to get investors. So at some point you got to say, if you're interested, here's how we move forward. Or here's what we're hoping is next. We hope to be open by spring. We hope to secure this by this date. Some movement where that's different than sounds interesting. Next. Does that make sense? And it's a common error because we're focused on trying to figure out what we're imagining. We're focused on getting it described and pictured as done. And that has a lot of sort of present tense moment in it. And so it's easy to just forget that. We got to put something in there to get to move the viewer into action. It's very similar to talking about sales, that if you present your brand and never ask for the order, you weren't really selling. You were just talking about your brand. Okay, who else has something about the business plan?
In terms of presentation, I mean, I know you don't want to provide too much structure, but do you have a rough time limit that you would like us to keep this presentation to?
That's a good question. We've got, we should probably think about a minimum and a maximum, which I haven't at this point. You're going to be doing them together versus separate. And you're also, just to clarify, you're presenting one file with two people's names on it. So I think it would be helpful from a Blackboard point of view for you to each upload the same file with your name in the file name, because Blackboard will be harder to grade you without a entry. Sorry, I was distracted with what I was trying to figure out here. So how much time? Let's see here.
20 minutes, half an hour.
I think that if we did, I think you should prepare to be between 10 and 15 minutes. let's say between 10 and 20. I'm not necessarily, there's no harm in not being 20, but I'll allow 20 if it's relevant in an in-depth plan that you think you need it. So I'll follow up with a message, but let's just reiterate that you're uploading one identical files with your name in the file name. So that's the only thing that's different between the two. And you're uploading that onto Blackboard in a PDF. And then you're presenting it in class. And
Hey, Fred.
so it won't have a grade until post presentation.
Hey, Fred,
Yeah.
I just got a point, I don't care. I'll stay over as long as it is, but there's like 8 people in the class for a 2-hour class. It's like 15 minutes apiece. So just to let you know.
Well, but there's 4 presentations. If you guys
4.
are presenting, you're presenting together. So I was dividing by 4.
Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry.
And saying that if they wouldn't all be 20 minutes, but if they were, we'd still be under 2 hours. And if we all were 15 minutes, we'd be done in an hour, maybe a little longer with some commentary. And then if we had any remaining review for the final, we could do that. And if you guys were all set, we'd, call it early, let you enjoy some spring sunshine, but I'm game for whatever. Frank, were you talking there?
Oh, well, I was thinking when you said spring sunshine, it might be snow, but
It might be.
but I do have a couple of questions regarding the PDF file, and I guess this has been really good for me because I've never done a PowerPoint thing, an Excel spreadsheet, and I'm not sure. Do we take this PowerPoint and then we have to make that into a PDF file? Is that?
Yep. And so the way you would do that, there's typically 2 ways to do that. You can either click File, Save As, and there'll be a PDF option and it should save slides. You can also use the print dialog. So if you do File, Print, this can vary between operating systems, but there should be a dialog box that lets you say, do you want to print handouts? Do you want to print slides? Do you want whatever? And you should choose slides. That will mean that, one page is 1 slide equals 1 page. And so it's, PDFs are just essentially printing your document digitally.
Oh, wait. So do you want just the presentation then, like as the business plan, or do you want, I think at least the way we had it going right now, we had like 2 different documents going. If it's all just putting everything into the PowerPoint and then submitting a PowerPoint to you with everything in it, that will be probably easier and different.
So that's a good question. I mean, treat me like your audience. So if you were going to say, there is supplemental information, you have these other materials, fine. But if you were going to put it on the screen in the meeting room, then it should be in the deck, right? So I would caution you. I'm going to reverse that decision. I don't think you should use supplemental information because then you're dividing the thing. It should be a plan. So if there's spreadsheet information, it should be on a page. And if you need to break it up, I could see that if I had something unwieldy that wasn't fitting into pages well, in real life, I might organize that differently. But really, if somebody's saying, if you're up for a grant, if you're up for, council review or something, and somebody's saying, submit your plans by the 30th, we'll review and then schedule you for an appearance, that needs to be a file that just goes. And that's also why I'm asking you to do PDFs and not PowerPoints, is that, it's easier. in a way to present on the screen if it was a PowerPoint, but people create these in different formats. You could create it in Word, you could create it in a business plan planner, you could create it in whatever. And if you're in PowerPoint, you're kind of counting on, so I'm putting some real life aspects to this, that PowerPoint's counting on the recipient of that file to have PowerPoint, know how to open it. If you had notes, if you had things, now they have access to sort of move stuff around. If they don't have the right fonts, it's not going to load right. Like if you used a specialized font in PowerPoint and then sent it to somebody and they didn't have that font, it's going to replace it with some random font, and then it might not fit on the screen anymore. So I didn't teach this stuff, but I think I was going through it when I was thinking about the assignment, is that the PDF is the reliable, bulletproof file to give to somebody besides you, right? It doesn't have notes in it. It can't be morphed, and formatting can't go screwy, where, you know, Word, PowerPoint, Excel, all these other things count on a certain amount of aptitude of the reader or their computer. And when we're in business plan mode, you want to bulletproof it. And that's why we're going to PDF. And that's why I think a single file is great for this exercise. I'll say for the real life component that, you know, one way to do what you might want to do is to put a link in the, you know, put a link on the page that says, for full details, download this other file over here. That would be one way to say, we're talking about this. This is what's relevant for today's conference room. And here are links to volumes of information that I've prepared for your viewing pleasure. But you're going to go there and download it from that Dropbox link or whatever it is you're using. And that's probably what I would do in a real life situation too, is I want to make it clean and straightforward, one file. I'll walk you through it. Have a nice day. Give me all the money. Or the approval or whatever it is.
So I guess what I'm asking is, if I think we're planning on doing a PowerPoint presentation to keep this simple and easy to digest, especially after the feedback you gave on the pitch deck. So yeah, is that just unheard of though, to say like, okay, here are all the points we want you to think about. Here's a hard copy of it. But yeah, it might not have as many details. I mean, is that unheard of for if you're trying to bring on a partner? Let's say that's the purpose of ours. And we just kind of give you all the, you know, all the good points on a nice, you know, not, it won't be just bullet points, but a bullet pointed list. That's not too little.
That's not what I'm saying. I think I'm going to try to give you an example here.
Fred?
Yeah.
In the slide deck that you had shown for the project, you said that you might be breaking out into breakout rooms. Are we still going to do that?
Refresh my memory there. We would do breakout rooms.
On the slide that you showed to for the description of the project itself. Yep. It said that 419 we would review the business plans and break out into breakout rooms.
Oh yeah. So we can do that if you guys want to work together at some point today. You want to take some class time today. We can do that. I think that's what I was thinking there. I apologize for not remembering that. But if you want to join as your teams and do some work right now, and then I can either visit those rooms or, you know, or what have you, or you can come back in the main room. We can allow that time if that's important to you. And I'm sort of new to this part of the class too, so I'm trying to let you guys prioritize what's most important in review. And if that is, then we'll do it. I'd forgot that we had breakout rooms on the idea. Let me get back to this question for a second, though. I was going to try to show it to you in PowerPoint. What I'm saying is, we're using PowerPoint as a way to organize pages in a presentation format, not as a way to describe the way which information is in there, that it's bullet points and it's present, meaning you can put a spreadsheet, a picture of the spreadsheet into the slide and say, here are the numbers and we're going to go over them. And so, I mean, I may use it differently than some, but I'm not saying to skip those details. I'm saying find a way to get them into the pages of that presentation.
The bullet point was just an example. Sorry if that was.
Oh, okay.
No, we have charts and things like that. I was just I just wanted to make sure that if we just saved large slides and submitted that, that's not like too unprofessional.
No, and really, and also this allows for the fact that if you had another way to create a document, if you wanted to do it in Word and then turn it into PDF from there, all PowerPoint is, or Keynote, if you wanted to use that on a Mac or some other thing, all it is a way to have good page management for both screen and paper, in my opinion. Now, it doesn't allow scrolling the way a spreadsheet can be. If I were sitting down in a production meeting, if this were an annual business plan, I might be working with somebody and saying, we're going to need to work in Excel because I've got I've got 50 columns and 100 rows, and this isn't going to lay out in page format very well. I've also used 11x17s for production for sales forecast, where we've got pages this big and multiple copies, or putting in the spreadsheet on the screen so you can scroll back and forth. I think that's more of a real life application than this presentation. So I would just screenshot if you need to bring a spreadsheet in or whatever. And just reiterating, hopefully not overdoing it, but the PDF is also because I don't want to know, and I'm saying this from a theoretical point of view, not apathy, but the viewer shouldn't know or care about whether you use PowerPoint or Word or Keynote or Business Planner 101 to create it. They should just have pages to read, and then you to be compelling counterpoint to it. Does that clarify it at all? And that's also a way to if you had a big, I don't think for this purpose of this project, if you're working on your real life business that you're trying to do and you have a big honking spreadsheet, then that's great. But there's no reason to get really extensive there for the purpose of the assignment. But if you did anyways, then it would just be, how do I capture what is essential for this plan and leave the support for it in another file that you could either reference to, or you could say, what we learned from doing this other extensive plan is shown here in this P&L. And I think it's not just this class, it's sort of like how, think about the readers. Like if you were going to read off all 12 months of every product and every customer, you're going to lose the room. But if you could say, here's the result of our 12-month analysis that includes all of these things and illustrates this, now you're more in business plan mode. If you were submitting a loan for the SBA, you're going to need a deeper business plan, but they'll tell you what it needs, and then you would do that. So like this is giving you some practice at a shorter version. And then if you were submitting to, especially SBA is a good example. They require a whole bunch of supplemental stuff because they're guaranteeing a note with the federal government. It's going to be some rules. Anybody else?
Fred, I want to talk to Trevor about his plan. That was a really nice PowerPoint. And I was up in Mount Pleasant yesterday, and I kind of came down through Byron and Argentine and Linden. And that's a really nice area, Trevor, for your idea. It seems like there's a lot of potential customers in that area, and you got like the lake down there is really cool, and I don't know if there's another brewery in that area or not, but that looked really good. That was a really nice place in that Fenton, Linden area. So looks. I know there's a Fenton brewery, but I don't know what's in Linden.
Yeah, thanks.
Frank, did the demographics pan out, or was Trevor spinning us a line?
No, I tell you what, I would call that a target enriched environment.
All right. All right. Well, Richard, I like your idea, so I'll keep it open here for questions if there's anything else. But I can also give you guys, I don't know, what do you think? Half hour in breakout rooms, and then I'll check in, and if you need any more time, we can do that. But if you guys have a question for me, I don't know how it works. If you can still message me, I can either join the room or you can just come back to the main room. I'll leave it open. Of course, it'll have to be open for the breakout rooms to be. But so that worked last time when Hannah and Richard, you just left your breakout, and then that brought you into the main room. Anything before we do that? All right. It'll take me just a second to make these, if I can remember how to do it. And we just gave Edwin and Frank the 1-minute warning. All right, anybody else have questions from their breakout rooms, or want to put anything forward? All right. You guys feeling good? Ready to launch?
Mm-hmm.
Much better.
Good. Well, we can go into what are you guys thinking about the final? I have not gone and collected. I think what we'll do at the tail end of next week, I'll figure out how to make Blackboard work for me a little bit and collect some commonly missed questions over the last few quizzes, maybe over the whole semester, and just we can do a little review of here were things that more than one person missed. I'll also just invite you to look at, take a review of your own things. And if there's something that didn't make sense, you don't know why you missed it, then you can, we can talk about that individually, or you can bring it up here or what have you. But that's one way to prepare. And we'll just open it up. You guys have anything you feel like you need more time on or more input on from a content point of view?
Well, that was something I was going to ask, actually, was like, I didn't know, and it might just be me being inept, but how to actually view the results of my quiz. Like I can see my grade and I can see an option to take it again, but I can't like see each question and what I got right and what I got wrong for review.
I can't do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not working. Has anybody had luck with that?
What I would recommend is copy down all the answers and the question. It's because sometimes it mixes up the positioning in the quiz.
Mm-hmm.
So just knowing, oh, it's not that one, it's the one underneath it.
Yeah. And Hannah, I haven't tried to review a test, after the fact, or like days after the fact, but right after you take it, you can go through and see which ones you got wrong and which ones you got right.
Right. No, so that I knew, but like I was, I'm looking back at like week 1 and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't even remember what Fred asked us. I don't remember what I said, what I took away from it, because there were a lot of, short answers to show understanding, and I can't see those answers that I gave you at all.
Really? Okay, so I will look at those early quizzes and make sure the settings.
Okay, because the thing is, when we had like a paper copy handed back to us, we had a record of the quiz. Yeah.
All right, let me take a look at that, because there's a setting that I might have gotten better at as quizzes went on, although there's no guarantee that I wouldn't get worse. Because Blackboard has a few little, secret cubby holes, I think. But there's a feature where it's supposed to reveal the answers to you after the grade is submitted, after the test is done. So like, if there's a quiz that's not showing you that, it might just be a checkbox, and I'll go look at that. Like, I'll try to look at all of them. But it's a little hard for me to tell whether it's working for you, a real student. I have a student review, but it gets weird. So I will do my best to make sure answers for past quizzes are revealed to the student.
Yeah, because if I go into the Grade Center right now and I click on quiz 1, it just tells me, the last time I submitted the quiz, and the icon legend is just, if it's graded or in progress or whatever. But looking at it right now, I can't. Oh, did you just change something?
No.
Huh.
But even if you click on that calculated grade, it just gives you like the questions. So question 6 for last quiz, I mean, it just says, what is the difference between a production forecast and a sales forecast? And I got, 1.5 out of 2.
And it's not giving you feedback?
Not that part, no.
Quiz 1 did just finally pop up.
Okay. Well, so on the short answer questions where you have a partial grade, there is feedback that you're supposed to see. So meaning I wouldn't just do that without, I say, here's what I was missing, or here's what I was thinking.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're not getting that, then there's something up with that. So you're talking about quiz 4, right?
So I just looked at quiz
5.
1. Yeah, I just looked at quiz 1. I had everything, and I look at quiz 5, and it's not the same.
All right.
That is nice.
Fred, why don't you just add 10 points to each one of our quizzes? We'll call it.
Sounds good. I appreciate the leadership, Frank. All right. Well, I will review that. And I'll send you an email rather than trying to do it right now. I'll review those quizzes and try to make sure they all have the same settings, and ask you to go look at it, because especially the short answer ones, there's feedback in each one of those. And so if you're not seeing it, that's a flaw. And then you're saying quiz 1 started working, or is working?
Yeah, and that was, I looked at it earlier today, and then I finally clicked on my calculated grade, and the answers popped up, and my short answers for quiz 1 did, but I just went into quiz 4, like Trevor said, and I'm seeing the same thing. I just see the question. I see that I got 1 out of 1, but I don't see your feedback like I do for quiz 1. So,
well, the feedback is only on the 2-point questions.
Right, but I'm just saying, like, I don't see it for any of them, and they did show up in quiz 1 for the 2-point questions.
Okay, I got you.
Sorry, that was a bad example, but
no, that makes sense. But and also when you're talking about going back, so I think what somebody was saying is that if you're looking to scan for whether you want to take a second attempt, you should be able to see only on the 1-point questions that there's a physical answer for, like a true, false, multiple choice matching. Those should identify that you have a wrong answer, but not give you the right answer. That lets you take a second swing at it if you want. And then once the test is all submitted and graded, then all of the answers should show up with correct answers.
Interesting.
And I'll try to double check that that's working for, for these next 2 weeks.
Okay.
So that we can go through, and then we'll have some time next week to add that to the review. Okay. Anything else about the functionality of that besides getting that feedback to show? The second attempts are working the way they're supposed to right now. You are able to see that you've got a true, false, wrong or not. Otherwise, second attempt is just kind of cruel. Hey, take it again.
Yeah.
We'll see. One of them might be good. All right. Any other questions, content-wise?
Yeah, I have Fred, I got a question about wholesalers. In terms of them selling like kegs, they essentially just take a handling fee, because how do they wouldn't charge a brewer less for a crappy beer as opposed to an expensive beer, do they? Or is it all on?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
I guess, how do they know how much to take on their cut?
So they're using percentages. So the more expensive the beer, they're still going to want to make 30% margin. So, 30% of 150 is more than 30% of 90.
Okay.
And so the, they're generally making, their percentage stays the same, but they're making more dollars on more expensive beer. It still weighs the same and takes the same amount of space in the truck, but their argument would be that it takes a little more specialized sale and probably sells a little slower. And so that's sort of the premise for why, and general business practices, you're going to make a percentage of your revenue versus takes me the same amount of time to load a Bud Light keg and a craft beer keg, so I should make the same dollars. That's just not.
Okay. So 30% is like a number that's.
Yeah, I would say between 25 and 30%.
Okay.
Is a wholesale margin. Same for retail. Retailer hugs closer to 25. Wholesaler moves closer to 30. And they can change that per package or per brand. That's part of the annual business planning process. Is here's our FOBs. Here's what the laden looks like. So, do we want to do line pricing? And you're gonna, if you have beers that cost different amounts, or I don't know what packaging, like if they're receiving different prices, but they decide, well, I'll line price those. I'll make them both $150, but I'll be making 26 points on one and 28 points on the other. That's their option.
Okay.
So it's not absolute, but it's part of their pricing strategy.
The brewer can do the same thing with their internal margin. I mean,
Yep.
they could. Okay, so their expensive beer, there may be a reason not to make so much money on the expensive beer, because you could price yourself way out of the market easily.
Yeah. So you have that. Those are strategic decisions about, hey, if I made the same percentage on this beer as I did on the other ones, it's going to be priced out. And because it's in a higher dollar category, 20 points is actually more dollars than 30 points of the other one. So we're good. If it's strategic and you know about it, then, all's fair. And my coaching would be, if you don't know that you're making less on that beer, then you're not going to know when you're not making any, because you're not looking at the speedometer, right? So if your costs mount up and you're adding things, or the packaging costs more, or let's do waxed bottles and specially, whatever. I just lost what I was thinking about, like inked bottles. Then you could add enough costs and be thinking about, well, I don't need to make the same margin as other beers, and you could cross the line to where you're losing money. So being aware of it is the first thing, and then being strategic about what you want to do about it is to each brewery's decision tree.
Well, it's brand awareness. I mean, the more stuff you can get people to buy, and cost is a factor. I mean, it's really hard for me to buy a $4 12-ounce can of beer. I mean, it's just, I don't know.
Well, yep, and that's these are the decisions that you make in the planning stage, and the more you mull them over now, the more you're on point to what you want to do when you're in the market, right? Because you can start solving for this and saying, I don't want my beer to be over this price. Okay, that gives you something in the given. It's sort of like when you were doing the. I mean, it's not math, but it sort of is, but I'm saying, like, when you're deciding which you were going to calculate and which you were going to solve for, which you were going to enter and which you were going to calculate. Same thing here in terms of strategy. Like, I know I want this and I want that, and I don't want to be in this other price tier. Well, that's going to affect which beers you can make and which packaging you can use and everything. It's going to affect things. So if that's your given, then solve for the rest. You're not likely going to be making 11% barrel aged stouts. If you're saying, listen, beer to me should be, accessible and lower priced, then you're going to end up making beers that can be profitable in that format. Does that help?
Yeah, I think I'm willing to go to a tasting room and get what I would call ripped off from buying carry out there, as opposed to going to a party store and taking a chance on something. I mean, if I taste something in a tasting room, I'm willing to walk home with a good sized sample, but I'm not going to blindly pick something out of a cabinet in a party store. So I think there's a different place where I'm willing to spend money. So I don't, that's just my take on it. It may not be very good. I mean,
well, you also have to decide, are your customers all like you, or are you selling to a number of different people, and some of them have buying habits that are different than you? So you can say, hey, for me, the beers I love in our lineup are this, but other people love these other beers, so I make them. I don't know that I'd be my best customer if I was out in a party store. It's not absolute that your buying preferences have to be reflected in your portfolio. What you need is an awareness of you're doing things with intention and with an expected buyer. And so some people are successful business operators when they say, you know what, I wanted a brewery that was going to make the beer that I like to drink. That's it. That can be part of their voice. And then you have a really good gauge on what you should make because it's what you like. But if you have a different purpose, then you're acknowledging that I'm not our only customer. So I make it taste great. I make it business make sense. I make these things happen. But there are people different than me that are in our audience, and I can learn about them and apply my skills to give them something they like.
I understand what you're saying. My opinion, I think, is not shared by most people, and I can't force other people to have my tastes. I can just make good beer, make it right, and hope that someone likes it. So
right. And so if you're steering a project, it's going to look different than somebody with a different either team makeup or a different attitude about it. And that's the beauty of it, is that you have options and you can say, listen, I know what I want to do, and I'm going to build a business around that idea. Somebody else might have a different take on things. But in terms of pricing, and saying, hey, I'm willing to spend more money and take it in if I taste it in a tasting room, also realize that the tasting room can be providing that sampling for somebody that will eventually be in a party store, right? So like one of the reasons to have a tasting room is because people can try something in a safer environment. They can take a sip, a taster, a flight, free sample or paid flight, either way. Then next week, when they're 20 minutes from the brewery and they go into the party store and they see that brand on the shelf, they're not necessarily buying it blind with all that risk of like, well, I'm not paying $13 for something I've never had before. They might say, This is that beer you had at Edwin's Pub last week. You loved it. I'm getting it. So the sampling in the tasting room is not only for tasting room purchases. And that's also why, COVID has kind of blown this up. But generally speaking, well, and the craft model has changed a little bit, but there are different ways of thinking about which leads which is more important: on-premise business, on-premise draft business, or package store bottle business. And the overall premise for a long time has been that on-premise drives off-premise. And it's because of that sampling, that if you're getting a tap handle, you're now one of 8, 12, 24, 30, or whatever the featured number of handles are. You've reduced your number of, you've been featured, and you're also now pouring in a glass and people can try you, and then they might see you pop off the shelf later. So the idea of in the marketplace, on premise is driving sampling and awareness, off premise is more of a sales venture. It's changed a little bit with the number of brands, but it also has sort of been confirmed by the number of tasting rooms, and that if maybe you don't have a draft handle out in the marketplace, but you do in your tasting room. So anyways, it's hard to get off the shelf if you're just a package and nobody's tasted you, and they don't even see it. I believe they don't even see it. If you haven't been featured in a different setting somewhere, they're just walking past hundreds of brands. You got to do something to have them recognize you and say, oh yeah, that's the one.
Okay.
But I mean, we got off the original question there, but hopefully that helps.
Yes.
And also, I'll add, your target for tasting room pricing should be similar to market pricing. So if you're distributed, you need to be matching that market pricing, which may mean taking higher margins than you would traditionally, but you're doing it so you don't undermine the marketplace, so people don't feel ripped off when they go to a party store and it's $2 more expensive than at your place. You're not doing the party store a favor by saying, oh, I didn't want to gouge the customer, I didn't want to make that much margin, I just wanted to give them a fair price.
No.
But the party store is getting the beer with a wholesaler margin, and they're saying, well, I can't give them that same fair price. So if you're going to sell it for less than me, you can have it.
Yeah, Fred, I'm with the argument is that you can actually charge more because you're there. It's the convenience. Maybe you don't want to go to find a party store and look through other shelves. I mean, I totally agree with not undercutting a party store because they're your neighbors and they can sell way more beer than you can in your tasting room.
Right. Exactly. And there's thousands of them and one of you. Anybody else?
Just listening to this last bit of conversation, I think that there's a lot of things that, that when people make things, they care about it. They care about the quality, the ingredients, the sanitation, presentation, and kind of, and again, it could be an identical product to somebody that's just there to make, big corporation making money. And I think that that's something in the craft, brewing business or, any kind of a craft product that comes through that people are willing to pay for. And, and I think that, because it's in, a little more interpersonal, emotional kind of thing, it's something that we have to take care of. And, and realize that people, are do business with people and not just a can of beer. And, so that's an interesting point. I think people are willing to, go the extra mile to get something that's well made, that the people that made it cared about it.
Absolutely. Yep. And I think that part of this last approach, that should be in your business plans, is that what makes your business, this approach, what makes it compelling. That's the stuff that can, trying to get it to come off a page, trying to get it, trying to learn the blocks of business is sometimes a threat to that voice. And that's part of the art of what you guys are working on, is how can I get the building blocks of this and express them in the right way, and provide opportunities for connection, both for whoever's on the receiving end of this plan, but also the receiving end, the viewing end of the brand itself. Our consumers going to be excited and saying, yeah, I want in. You know, my favorite thing, it's not necessarily the way you teach this stuff, but I mean, my favorite thing is when people don't care what price is. They just say, I'll take one of those and one of those because I love you guys, whatever. Here's my card, right? That's kind of what we're going for. But having appropriate pricing is what allows that to be skipped, and they don't get in their car and go, what the hell did they just charge me? You know, for that to actually work and for them to come a second time, you got to have done some work. But they'll give you more benefit of the doubt, or more benefit of the shopping experience, if they're just riding high, thinking they love your brand. You know, developing fans instead of customers is part of being in this craft space, is that we're not just competing on the lowest common denominators of brand comparison and like, I'll take the cheapest one. We are competing in a subjective opinion, you know, community full of fans who are saying, I want to root for my favorite breweries. And that's, to your point, Frank, will also elevate what they're willing to pay and how far they'll drive for it. That's why they go drink beer in a parking lot in February at a winter beer festival, because they're fans. They're not saying, where's the most efficient place I can get beer on the 4th Saturday in February. They're engaged on a different level. And that's what we're all trying to create with businesses, or support if we're not creating a business. I don't know how to ask that on the final, but you know, it's good learning. Any other questions, either business plan or final? All right, I'll review quizzes and send you an email. I'm going to send you an email, a separate one too. Course evaluations are going up. I haven't been through this process before, but I'm going to email you a link that they gave me. There's like the next 6 days. Maybe you're getting it from other classes, I don't know. But the evaluation's up for 6 days. Ask you things about the class. Would love it if you'd take it. I would love to hear back and learn from this process. It's been a pleasure working with you guys, but I certainly want to get feedback and learn how to make it even better. So take a look at that, and I appreciate your input. And unless anybody objects, we can end class a little early, let you guys work on this stuff, and I'll get to fixing quizzes.
Great. Good night, everybody.
All right. See you guys.
Yep. Good night, everyone.
Yep. See ya.